So welcome back to part 2 of our hobby design Nissan R33 400R build. So picking up where we left off last time, we're going to apply a panel line wash to our freshly painted body. So the body's been drying for about 12 hours, so more than adequately dry. What we're going to do is add a Tamiya enamel black panel line wash to all the panel lines, just to accentuate them, all the door shuts, bonnet shuts, anywhere that hold a wash, anywhere basically we described earlier on. Now this is an enamel based wash, so it doesn't damage the lacquer at all. We're going to let this dry afterwards for about half an hour, and then using a cotton bud and some kitchen paper moistened with some Winsor & Newton Santador, which is an odorless mineral spirits, we're going to wipe away any excess and leave our nice highlighted panel lines behind. So once your decals are set in place, these are totally safe, no problem at all. I would leave the decals, like I said, about 12 hours to make sure they're thoroughly reset. And like I say, this is important why you need to cut them to make sure that they stay down and don't lift under the wash. So wheels we assembled in the first part. We've got some centre caps to put in place now. So they've been carefully cut off. A little bit of CA glue. They are dropped in place just like that. We'll do all 4 of those, and that is the wheels fully completed then. Big tip here, make sure your wheels are glued together properly. And you don't pull them apart like that. A little bit of CA glue, fix that, no problem. And here we are, we can move on to our first proper session of 2K on this car. So we've got my nicely cleaned out booth, we've got a fresh filter in the extractor, we've got our plastic case to the left to store our modelling, to keep the dust off it. I am double gloved with nitrile gloves. We've got the ProScale Paint 2K system. I've got my full face respirator on. My extractor is running. I have a through draft with my window open just a tad, and I'm in the room on my own. Follow these precautions with 2K and you'll be just fine. Keep it off your skin and out your lungs, and you'll have no problem whatsoever. So 2-to-1 mix R2K. So basically 2 parts clear, 1 part activator. So here I'm probably mixing, I think I tend to do on bigger bodies like this, 10 ml of clear, 5 milliliters of activator. Use pipettes once and once only, and then throw them away. So there's our 5 milliliters of activator with our 10 milliliters of clear. There we go. We can then pop the lid back on that securely, put it out of the way, and then stir this up to get the chemical reaction started. Always keep your 2K nice and cool and out of direct sunlight, and you'll find it'll last a lot longer. The activator is a consumable. It has an isocerylate, which is a ingredient of superglue. So it is a consumable. It does only have a limited shelf life. After that, we add 5% of thinner. So with a 15 milliliter combined mix, we're adding 0.75 milliliters of thinner. And again, we're using a fresh pipette for each one and throwing it away after use. We do not contaminate any of the bottles with each one of the chemicals. And there we go. That is it all mixed together. And now we're going to filter this through a 190 micron paint strainer in case there's any crusty bits of activator in there, which is quite common with all 2Ks off the lid of the bottle. It does dry on the outer edge, and sometimes when you undo the bottle, it can fall into your cup. So always strain your 2K. We sell these strainers over on ProScale as well. And again, one use only, throw it away. So we get everything out of the way. Give the model a wipe over with our Tamiya anti-static brush. Make sure it's securely mounted to our stand as well. And there we go, we're ready for our 2K. Now as you can see, I've wetted the surface of my booth as well on the kitchen paper. That way any dust that lands on there should stay on there and not get airborne again. That's the idea. Anything we can do to reduce dust, because dust is the real enemy with clear coating. So that wiped over, we give it an anti-static brush. Our Revolution CR5 eye water is loaded up with our 2K mix. We're about 22 psi, and we're going to start off the process by applying a nice semi-wet coat to the entire surface of the model. So we don't want to go full wet coat, we want to see a nice semi-gloss surface on this. This is where you'll see your colour starting to come alive, and it darkens it absolutely beautiful. You can already see it just after one light coat of paint. Make sure you're getting all those wheel arches as well, and in and around any grills or lights or bumpers, and get all those angles. What that will do is a nice semi-gloss coat, like I say, all around the model. Just take your time here. So you want to be as thorough as possible and as quick as possible, because the least time you keep it outside of that box, the less dust you've got a chance of landing on the model. So take your time, but hurry up at the same time if that is a thing you can do. Now we're following the previous edge of clear coat, just keeping that wet edge as we go along. And like I say, it's just a nice semi-gloss coat. Again, getting all those wheel arches, all those nooks and crannies, all on the sills as well. And I've sped this up now just for time saving really. And then across the front, in and around all that bumper, in and around all the grills and the intakes and the lights, across that bonnet. You can see me keeping that wet edge all the way along. Don't forget your A-pillars as well, quite easy to forget those. Across the roof, across the boot lid, in the inner outer edge of those spoiler mounts, and along the back end of the car, and in and around the top and the bottom of the bumper. And there you go, in and around those A, B, and C pillars. And there we go. Quick check underneath. And there we go. So we'll plate that back in our box. And then we'll 2K all the rest of the other parts as well. So we've got the 2 mirrors and our upper and lower spoilers that we carboned earlier on. So don't forget, if you're going to clear coat over decals, make sure they've been thoroughly dried for at least 24 hours. Heat is a big helping factor as well. It will get any moisture out from behind them. And most importantly, make sure they are fully sealed and set in place. So we'll let that flash off for 5 minutes and we're back for our second coat. And we're going to apply basically the same coat again, a nice semi-gloss coat, probably a little bit heavier on the trigger this time. And I've come back off the model a little bit to get a bit more of a wider pattern. But we're not going to try and get a perfect 2K on this coat. We're just going to get another nice coat of 2K down, and then we're going to pop it back in our little box for 90 seconds or so and let the self-leveling properties of the 2K take effect. So exactly the same as the first coat, just getting all those nooks and crannies, all around the tops of the bumpers, all around those spoiler supports, and be nice and thorough on the roof as well. And you can see we just got our first speck of dust, absolutely gutting. I think that was literally one of the only specks of dust on this car, and they just come out of nowhere. Literally just an airborne piece of dust, and it gets suckered up by the brush and just blown onto the car. It's a pain. It doesn't go through the airbrush, but it just gets suckered into the paint flow. So pop that back into the booth. It's going to sit in there for about 90 seconds, and we'll give all these another coat as well. What we're going to do then is we're going to thin our final 2K a little bit more. I've been finding this much more beneficial lately, definitely getting a better finish and requiring a lot less sanding and polishing on the end stages. So we'll pour our mix back into a nice fresh medicine cup so we can see the markings clearly on the side to see just how much we have left. So if you're left with 1 milliliter of clear mix, sorry, 10 milliliters of clear mix, we're going to add 10% thinner. So we're going to add another 1 milliliters of thinner to that. It doesn't sound a lot, but it makes a huge difference to the viscosity of the 2K, and it flows a lot better and self-levels a lot easier as well. Now, I know a few people have been doing this on the first and second coat. I wouldn't recommend doing it. I've tried all these different ways on numerous models, and for me, this is the optimum way of doing it. So again, back from the model a little bit more. We'll go a bit heavier on the trigger, and we are just trying to lay down a nice wet coat here. And this will self-level a lot faster. You'll also find it flows through the airbrush a lot faster as well. And again, we're just following that wet edge while we do it. There we go, across the roof. Again, pay attention to all the nooks and crannies and the A-pillars. Just having a look. We're going to pop it back in our box and just do all the other little parts again as well. Remember, the smaller parts don't need as much paint, so don't go as mad. There we go. And then we're going to angle the spoilers now straight, so the 2K self-levels as it should. Always find this helpful to do on parts like this. And then we're going to get that body out for one last time. And have a look. Now this should be absolutely like glass. If you can see any imperfections, put a little bit more 2K on it. Won't need a lot more. It'll just need a light spray across a few areas. It should literally look flawlessly perfect. If you see any ripples or any imperfections, put a little bit more 2K down. Don't be afraid to push it. It is very, very forgiving, and you'll be surprised how much 2K you can actually put down. It is very, very forgiving. So using the light in the booth to my advantage, I'm angling it all round, just looking for any orange peel or any slight imperfections. And like I say, don't be afraid of putting more down. How this looks now is how it's going to dry. So the better finish you can get now, the less sanding and polishing you're going to have to do later. So it is a time saver, and it will give you a much better finish. And like I say, other than that one speck of dust on the roof, this is one of the cleanest bodies I've ever sprayed. Very little muck or debris in it, but dust is everywhere. Either you could be the most cleanest person in the world and you'll still have dust. It's all over the place. So one final look around. Yep, happy with that. Back in the box. Also be careful putting it out of the box. It's very easy to snag it on things. Been there and done that. And a quick check of all these little parts as well. And I'm happy how that's looking. So that'll be left in there now for a week to fully cure. Clean your airbrush with your lacquer thinner as per usual. And here we are now with the really boring part. This is the part of modelling I dislike the most, and that is the cleanup of all the other parts. Now, thankfully on the Alpha and the Hobby Design kits, the part count isn't really high, and the parts are really clean. Now, there was a bit of a seam on the back of the seat I had to take care of, but normally the Alpha model Hobby Design kits are really clean kit and require minimal cleanup, so they are quite fast to get through. In fact, to me, these are a nice welcome break from plastic kits because they're just so easy to build and assemble. Whereas a plastic kit, you've got loads of plastic parts to de-seam and sand. There's very little to do on these bits. But yeah, there was a little bit of rough resin on the back of these seats, so I gave it a quick go over with a UMP sponge sander until it was happy. And then we're going to get everything mounted up. So all the resin's mounted up, all the P's cut off and cleaned up. And we mount this to reverse mounted Tamiya tape in preparation for primer and paint. And as you can see, we've got a multitude of parts. Not everything is going to be painted here. Brake discs on this car are going to be steel, natural metal, so no carbon on this. So that saves us a bit of time. We've got an intercooler grille that's going to be normal colour as well, just metallic colour, so it doesn't need painting either. But basically clean up all the parts of our Zoran shears and our Tamiya diamond file if we need it. And I'll be honest, 9 times out of 10, the Zoran shears get that close to the PE, they don't even need filing, which is why I love them so much for my photo etch. And as you can see, mounted on here, everything is in one place and really easy to paint. So there we go, over in the paint booth, we've got our ProScale Paints Photo Etch Primer now. So this is an etch primer. This will actually chemically etch itself to the metal, gives a much more resilient primer coat. We're spraying this from my CR3 Revolution water at about 18 psi. Just a couple of light coats is more than sufficient on this. We've built up our window wipers as well, which you've seen me do dozens of times now. Nice and simple to do. A couple of coats of etch primer on these, getting all those angles. You'll find a multitude of clips come in very handy for modelling. These are just bulldog clips, absolutely fantastic for holding parts like these. It's quite surprising as modelers what we will repurpose for modelling, and they work absolutely perfect. All the resin is being primed in a multitude of different primers. So this one is Tamiya Grey Surface Primer, decanted out the can, thinned about 10% with Tamiya Lacquer Thinner Retarder, and just a couple of coats down on the chassis to get a nice primer coat. Lays down beautiful. I would use ProScale, but we can't get in there to sand it. I only tend to use ProScale on the actual bodies where I can get in there to sand it. Because it's a microfiller primer, it doesn't really have a use on parts like these. So I still regularly use Tamiya grey and pink and white, and I use black Mr. Servicer 1500. I wish Tamiya made a black primer, but for some reason they don't. Like I say, a couple of coats of primer and everything. We can get all this ready for our base colour for our interior. Pretty bland interior on this. It's going to be mostly black, grey and anthracite. It's just how these cars are, but it's still quite a nice interior and it builds up really, really well. So there we go. With Tamiya primer, it does like to go on a little bit wetter, so don't be afraid to put your last few coats down a little bit wetter than the first. Be careful with your first coats. They just need nice mist coats or it will kind of pool and separate. There we go. Lots of parts to paint, lots of parts to prime. So yeah, I enjoy painting though. It is probably my most enjoyable part of modelling, whether it be the body or just parts like these. I always enjoy painting. But there we go. There's the door cards done. You can see the Tamiya primer does cover really well. Decanted, it sprays beautiful through the airbrush, thinned a little bit. And then on our wipers, we're going to go Mr. Servicer 1500 black. Just give them a nice black base coat of primer. Multitude of angles on these, so make sure you get them all covered. There we go. And then some other parts need painting up as well. So we're going to prime all these running gear parts, like the intercooler, in Mr. Servicer 1500 black. So yeah, a couple of hours in this paint booth here, priming everything. As I said before in the first episode, priming, very important part of modelling. I tend to prime everything, and I think it's a very important step in not only, you know, spotting imperfections, but also a paint adhesion, giving it a nice and smooth finish. I think it's a very important step to do. And there we go. A final coat of primer on the underside of the chassis. I've no idea why I primed it in grey. I can't remember why I did it. I don't know what the reasoning for that was. I think I wanted to prime the inside grey for the grey paint later on. So I think I kind of thought I'll do underneath as well. It's a nice primer coat ready for the Mr. Surfacer. Now the exhaust, we've got some Pro Scale titanium silver. And as you can see by our paints, they cover so fast. Very highly pigmented, very finely pigmented as well. And just an absolutely beautiful colour. Looks absolutely fantastic. So there we go, nice and quick, nice and easy. Me getting some Facebook messages, apologies there guys. So we're painting intercooler here. Now, I have painted this wrong. It's going to be black. We are going to repaint it later on, but we'll save that delay for me to realise later. And the brake disc, we're just going to paint the centres in, I think it's just super fine silver, I remember right. And obviously we've got the photo etch to go on these as well. And then we've got some LP5 semi-gloss black from Tamiya for all our lights. And a few other parts as well. And again, the window wipers, some LP5 for those as well. Could be left Mr. Surfacer 1500 black. It is actually a good shade of black. It's like a slightly more satin semi-gloss black, if that makes sense. But I opted for LP5. Now, the interior, we're going to do a mixture of Pro Scale black grey, and I think it was anthracite I did it in. So, light coats of paint, just build it nice and slow. We are going to flock this as well. Flock, yeah, we are. With some anthracite flocking. But just build this up nice and slow to get nice coverage. You can see the colour, a really nice grey black leather colour. And the same on these parts as well. So, Japanese interiors for me are often, they're not the most interesting. This one's not too bad. Thankfully, we've got a couple of shades of interior colour. And nice seats as well, but it can be a little bit bland inside, which is a little bit disappointing as a modeler when you're trying to get that visual kind of impact. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, a car's interior is a car interior. There's not much we can do about that. But like I say, a couple of light coats of each paint. I can get the coverage down on them. And the seats, again, in this beautiful black grey leather. Now, as you'll see, our paints do quite often drive a little bit of sheen on interior parts. So we will dual coat these later on, or you can use a flat matte coat of your own choice. But for me, I like Testa's dual coat because I still have a few bottles around. Now we're going to mask off the centre part of the seat. Very tedious, took a long time to do. Very carefully masking it with 1mm Azood masking tape. I've moved away from Tamiya masking tape on the thinner stuff because the last 3 rolls of the 1mm I've bought has not been cut evenly. So I'm pulling it off the reel and it hasn't got a straight edge. It's like been miscut. So I got about £10 worth of wasted tape and thought, yep, not buying any more of that. So whether they've had a bit of quality control or there's been an issue with machining, I don't know. But AZ tape is just as good a quality and it's a tad cheaper as well and comes in a multitude of other sizes. The Tamiya thin tape only comes in 1, 2 and 3 mil. AZU comes in 0.4, 0.7, 1, 1.5, 2 and 2.5. So much more useful for masking jobs because you literally match the masking tape thickness to your requirements. Infilling these now with some Tamiya 6mm tape. There's the centre of our seats done. So we've got 2 front seats and the rear bench seat as well. Just some very careful masking here. And then we'll spray our other colour on top in a minute. And there we go. There's our 2 interior colours. So like I say, it does add a little bit of interest to it. A little bit more interesting. So this is the anthracite grey now. I'm pretty sure it was anthracite. I can't quite see the bottle label, and I'm quite a way ahead of my builds at the minute. We've already got the Honda NSX finished, and we've got the 62 Impala on the go. So sometimes the memory gets a little bit foggy sometimes. So apologies if I do forget, but I'm pretty sure that is the, or it might just be the grey actually, thinking about it. I think that might just be one of our greys. I forget. I normally always flash the bottle at the camera, and I've forgotten on this instance. And that's why I do that, because I know sometimes I'll be a little bit hazy on the details. So apologies, but it is definitely Pro Scale black grey primer and a lighter grey primer as well. Now, a new paint that I specifically developed for doing this kind of job. So we've got a hot metal range now of a red, blue, and a violet. This is the blue, and it can be used for exhaust heat staining and also be used for anodizing. So over silver, the blue comes across as anodized blue. And if you look on the real car, it has anodized blue hubs behind the wheels. So perfect test piece for this. I did the staining on the RX-7, which you saw in the last video, and the FXK, I think it was. And this is the second use for it now. And with a circle template like this, you just get the hub in place and then a couple of light coats. And because it's a nice opaque metallic blue colour over silver, it gives that really nice anodized effect. So yeah, very useful paint. Decals on the brake calipers. Again, we didn't get any decals with these. Don't know why. So I've gone with Brembo yet again. This is the second Alpha model kit in short succession that I've had no decals for the brake calipers, which is pretty inexcusable if you ask me, to be honest. But anyway, so normal decal procedure, get them off the backing paper, get them in place, all the moisture from behind them, and then hit them with your decal solutions of choice, which for me, as usual, will be the UMP Strong. So very delicate work with our tweezers. We can get them in place, make sure it's nice and straight, remove all the moisture, and then hit it with the decal solutions. We are going to clear coat these later on as well. So we have a nice gloss black brake caliper. And again, a little bit boring. I would have liked a nice flashy yellow or something on there, but true to the real car form. And like I say, some UMP Strong. We get our different water pen. Slightly thinner brush. There we go. And we'll just get all this set in place. Like so. And there we go. Let those dry, and then we can 2K it later on. There's a decal on the seat as well. So just get that in the appropriate position. You can see now we've masked it all. We've got the nice two-tone seat. And like I say, we're going to dual coat these in a bit to lose all that sheen and make it look a little bit more realistic. So it's not leather on these. It would actually be cloth on these cars. So we definitely want to get rid of that sheen. Photo etch brake discs here now, so we're cutting all these off, so we'll clean them up like we did with all the other PE, cut them off, then clean them up with the shears so they're nice and clean, and we're going to scuff them up with a UMP sander. So I'd much rather have carbon brakes. I think they look a lot more interesting on cars, but obviously because of the age of this car, it wouldn't have had them. So using a UMP sander, some rotary sanding action there, look at that action there, beautiful. We can add a little bit of scuff into the brake disc and make it look a little bit less like new and give just a bit more realism to it. There we go. We do that for each of those. And I have a few blobs of Tamiya craft bond, which I think I've managed to stick most of it to the bench. Around the edge of the disc, we can then glue the photo etch in place. So these go front and rear, so make sure you get the right ones. Pop it in place. So fine, give it a little turn, spread the glue a bit. It does grab really well. The craft bond, it does have a bit of purchase to it. And then once that's all dry, we can hit it with a Tamiya panel line wash. They are slotted discs, so it will hold a wash. Just pop it on, let it dry, and then wipe off the excess later on. Nice and simple, and again, just adds a little bit of depth to the disc. Makes it look a little less monotone. Same with the seats as well. We've mixed up a nice dark grey mix, mixing black and grey together. I'm just going to apply it to all the recesses on the seats. And again, we'll let it dry, wipe it off, job done. Nice and simple. And again, it just adds a little bit of depth to the seats, makes them look a bit less of a monotone colour. Adds a little bit of realism to it. Like I say, the Tamiya panel line wash is enamel based, so it's ideal for this because it doesn't react with the lacquer. There we go. Same on the front seats as well. Literally, if it has a recess, it's getting washed. It's as simple as that. Especially when you've got a colour change like the front of the seats there, it'll help kind of combine the colours. And like I say, some Sansador from Winsor & Newton, odourless mineral spirits, which are going to gently rub away any excess wash. And it should leave us with a little bit of depth to the seats. There we go. You might find a pointed one a little bit better, just so you can get in the nooks and crannies a little bit better. There we go. Definitely adds a bit of realism to the seat. And then once we get these flat coated, they'll look a lot better. So there we go. Combination of the cotton buds and some kitchen paper. Do the fronts and the backs, and they'll be all ready to go. Like I say, great stuff, the Tamiya panel line wash. It is a firm favourite of mine. I've had that one bottle of black for years. I couldn't even tell you how long I've had it, and it must have been used on hundreds of models. It's starting to get a little bit empty now. I could do with buying a new one. Sadly, it's not readily available in the UK, which is a real pain. But there we go. A little bit on the hub as well. Again, takes away that monotone look. The anodizing blue looks absolutely fantastic as well. And the same with the dashboard. We've washed all the dashboard as well. I'm just going to glue in place. Well, we are going to wash it in a minute. Sorry, I forgot. We're going to glue this piece in place first. So a little dab of CA glue to hold that panel in place. Then we've got our extra dials, which are in the glove box. I believe they are anyway. I think it drops down out the glove box. Quite an interesting dash on this one. It's actually quite busy. And then the door cards have this little centerpiece on each one, which is the same colour as the outer part of our seat. So again, adds a little bit of visual interest in the interior. It's not as monotone as some of the more Japanese car interiors I've seen. And then we've got our door handles to glue in place as well. So a little dab of CA glue on these. There we go. And then just very carefully glue it in place. Like so. Get positioned properly. Not the best locating point on these doors. You kind of have to do it by eye. So just take your time. And here we go, we're on to the bodywork. So we've got our Trizac 6 and 8000 pads here. And you know the score with this now. We're going to go round and flat all the 2K. So this will do two things. Number one, it'll get rid of any imperfections. We can try and take care of that dust spot on the roof as good as we possibly can. And secondly, it will thin out the 2K a little bit. People often complain the 2K looks a little bit too thick. And I agree, if you don't sand it back, it does look too thick. But our Pro Scale, it dries super thin. It's by far one of the most out the kind of airbrush friendly 2Ks I've used. It dries nice and thin out the brush, but once it's flatted back and polished up, it gives it a much more realistic scale look. Now, a lot of people are always going to say, oh, it looks too shiny. In my opinion, you can't have a car too shiny. I've never washed and polished my real life car and thought it looks well too shiny. Let's throw a bucket of soil over it, make it look more real. So my goal with these is to make them as shiny as I possibly can, because if this was my car, I'd want this thing looking spotless. So that's what I'm going for. So 2K for me is by far the best clear coat, gives the best result, it's the most reliable, and it's the easiest to use. Out the airbrush, it looks fantastic. It sands back really well, especially with the Trizac pads, absolutely beautiful. And it polishes up absolutely stunning as well. In my opinion, there's nothing better to use on scale model cars, but everyone has their opinion and you're all entitled to them. I see quite a lot of models out there and think they're not shiny enough. So it's one of those things, isn't it? It's a matter of opinion. But for me, 2K is definitely the way to go. It's the best finish out the airbrush, and it sands and polishes up absolutely beautiful, as you can see here. So 6 and 8000 Trizac pads, just go around all the body and basically flatten it back. So we go through both stages of those. As you can see, we end up with a nice flat body there. We've got our Zoom on polishing pads here. So these are new in stock of Pro Scale as well. They're sold out at the minute, but I have a whole load of them due in at the end of the week. It is the 5th of March today, and I think they'll be with us by like the 8th. They shouldn't be too long. There's loads of them due in. And again, these are something I've not used before. I've used in the past and kind of dismissed them, but using them properly now with the appropriate compounds, which is these men's earners, they work absolutely fantastic, and I regret not using them a long time ago. Not only are they a game changer in the way they work, they're a time saver as well. Absolutely brilliant. So come over to Pro Scale, have a look. We should have these in stock very soon. And these men's earner compounds you can get on Amazon. I use the 3500 and the 2500, and then the Autoglym Super Resin Polish as our final go over. So I rub it all in by finger first, and that way it doesn't fling everywhere all over my workspace. And then with the medium polish and spun on my Proxxon multi-tool on its lowest setting, I'm just going to go round and very carefully polish it all up. It's nice and easy to do. It's a lot quicker than doing it by hand, and I swore by doing it by hand for a long time, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to try this, and this is an absolute game changer. It's so much faster. The result is a lot better as well. You just need to be careful. Now, obviously, 2K is a very resilient clear coat, but if you're not careful on the edges, it is easy to burn through. So just take your time. Keep the tool away from it as well. You don't want to be hitting the edge of that yellow on the paintwork, because it will chip the paint. So yeah, you need a little bit of control, a little bit of patience doing this, but I think the result is well worth it, and it's such a more efficient way of polishing the models. It really, really is. It's just quick, fast, and easy. And even just off this coarser compound at the beginning, use a nice clean piece of cotton. This will polish up to already quite a nice shine just off the coarse compound. So it shows you how effective it is. We're going to work our way through all the compounds from the coarser 2500 to the less coarse 3500, and then the final polish with the Autoglym Super Resin. And that way we should end up with a beautifully polished body. Like I say, even just now with this stage, it looks absolutely fantastic. The blue totally changed colour under the clear coat. Become a lot darker. That metallic showing through, absolutely beautiful. And it just really is a stunning colour. Like I say, the real car that I based my build off was inspiration for this build. I just saw it and kind of fell in love with it and thought, yep, I got to buy that kit, and here we are now, and I've got my own miniature replica of it, so looking good. So again, now we're on to the side of the body, and again, just take your time, just be careful of any corners or raised areas, because that's where you'll burn through the paint. The paint is always inherently thinner on raised areas or corners, so that's the places you'll burn through. So just go around those areas a bit quicker than you do on the flatter side. And I tend to do 2 passes. I go all the way around once, and I come back and go all the way around again. And I find that works best overall. So I was using my battery-powered drill for doing this, but it kept running out of charge. And to be honest, the Proxxon, it's on a foot pedal. It's so much easier to use. It's exactly the same RPM. And yeah, it's no real different than using the battery-powered one. And again, quick wipe off of the Corsa 2500 Menzerna. You can see the shine we've already got, looking absolutely fantastic. So we're going to repeat this process with the 3500 using the red fine sponge, and then the super resin polish from Autoglim again with a red sponge. And here we are. Bought a new airbrush. It's a very cheap, I forget the make now. I forget what it was. Anyway, it's a cheap 16 quid airbrush off Amazon, and all I'm using it for is blasting water through. I was using my Iwatas, but to take a lacquer airbrush and put water in it I was getting a bit paranoid that I'd end up with water in there that would interfere with paint. I thought for £16, just cheap nasty airbrush will do the job just fine. And you know what? It's not that bad for the money. I don't think I'd use it to actually paint, but for jet washing the bodies, it's perfect, you know. It's only ever going to get water through it. And to jet wash all the panel lines to get the dried polish and compounds out, it works absolutely perfect. So we cranked up our pressure on our compressor here. We've got an old toothbrush as well. So I tend to go around and soften it all up with one go. Then I get the toothbrush, which is a very, very soft bristle brush, and go around the body, just getting all the recesses, and then go around and blast it all again. And that tends to clean it up absolutely perfect. I love getting to this stage of the model. This always means I'm nearly at the end. This is kind of the point that's always holding me up, because I like to let my body sit for 7 days. So now after this, once I'm done, I can get all the windows taped up and painted black, get the interior painted black, and start with final assembly. So I do like getting to this stage. We can use just the air off the airbrush to help dry the model now as well, just blasting off all the water, both on the inside and the outside. And we can dry it off with some kitchen paper and give it a nice polish up with our nice fresh glasses cleaning cloth to see what we get. But you're not going to see that until part 3. We're going to leave that there today. So thanks for watching. As always, you'd like to get early access on all these videos, you become a patron. You get a month's early access. You get a Saturday exclusive at the bench update. The applicable tier gets a 10% code off at Pro Scale Paint as well. And you also get to request builds and what have you, and added to a Facebook supporter chat. So we'll see you in part 3 very soon. And as always, a huge thanks to all my patrons. Your name's going to flash up on screen.